Hey guys, welcome to Corrections with Destined. Today, I'm revisiting Abyss because there's one really big thing I missed when it came to making my Moriden video. And that's the fact that you can point him away in Abyss. So in Abyss, if you saw this, my last video, I ended up moving him away from the Meteoric Deluge, which was great. Allowed me to have more ground units than I should have been able to. It was great, right? And he can replace Kigiri, by the way. Either way, I moved him down here to the bottom right in the magic phase, but I faced him up. And facing him up stops him from channeling, which allows him to do more damage, and I need to really see if he can do more if I use him properly. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. And I'm also going to include an A3 souped up gear example. Because I was doing A1, I'm using this gear that simply is not that bad, but we also do need to remember that Moriden does ignore defense, which means that I think doing a bit more crit damage would be good, and some Wicked Vengeance. I did this because this is the average gear I use for most tests, just because it gives me a good baseline to compare, but I would like to see how well he performs with some insane gear. Main thing, Dark Infusion is something that happens when he charges, and it'll allow him to gain some stacks. And when he gains the stacks, he does a lot more damage, and his ult lasts a lot longer. So I want to see if that makes it better. So we're going to go into it. Now, all of the gear is the exact same as my last video. All pretty good. Wukong's is similar to Moriden's, a little bit better, similar. By the way, not max crit rate. I don't think it matters that much. If you guys want, I can literally just put a better quad on. Like, I'm not opposed to putting this on. It makes him a bit stronger. Either way, this is the team that we're going to be using, and I just want to see how well he performs, and then we'll go on to the A3. Now, I will say, his kit was very confusing, so I'm not going to beat myself over being wrong. But obviously, if I'm this wrong about a key mechanic in a hero, I gotta do an updated video, right? Like, it just makes sense. It would be kind of wrong to just leave it this way. Either way, we're gonna put Narissa there, then we're gonna put Numera, we're gonna put Vorn. Numera's A3, so she's gonna do a ton of damage. And I'll put Tordo right here. Obviously, I can get rid of Kigiri, I can get rid of Wukong, and I'll be able to move Moriden. Well, I can leave him there and still move him out. And I could use extra platform units, but I don't think it's really too worth losing sleep over. I'm just gonna click his ult pretty early. I'm gonna do it now, I think, and I miss Kigiri ult. Kigiri's not the focus. We just need to time Wukong properly. Either way, Moriden's ult, because he is bonded, is going to last a very long time at the beginning. Just because he gains full stacks, which allows him to give extra time on his ultimate, which is ultimately a very long time. As you can see here, Moriden is somewhat competitive with Sun Wukong. Obviously, Kigiri is not going to be doing as much because I missed his ultimate right there. He's going to shoot up to the top of the list. But the main thing we're looking at is Moriden and Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong got a little bit more vulnerability damage, so an A0 Moriden is still keeping up relatively. But of course, we're still at the early stages. We're going to see it probably differ quite a bit. So now we're going to move him out of the way preemptively. For those of you guys who don't know, you do have to move him out before the Meteoric Deluge as soon as you can, just because he needs time to build up his ult. And the main thing we're doing differently is I'm facing him down. And you can see here that he is no longer targeting the boss, which allows him to enter his charging phase and become much stronger, which is amazing. All right, he has 20 seconds. The next ult should be pretty long, which is always good. And we'll see what happens at the end of the day. I don't expect him to start doing Kigiri level numbers, but I do expect him to do better, which is the important thing, obviously. Here we're going to click Torador just in case, and then we can Numera right here, finish the shield, do a bunch of damage. I'm going to wait a little bit on Moriden. My one concern about Moriden being here right now is that if I ult with him, because he's built up his stacks, my main concern is his ult will last too long to get his ult for the vulnerability, which is ultimately going to lose him damage. So I know this seems kind of dumb to move him early, because he misses his slash and... I'll wait, it's fine. I think it's better to move him early so that he can start to build his next ult, but I will wait. And then we can move him back into Diao-Chen range, have him use his ult immediately, and you can see that he is now at max stacks, which is essentially 50% more attributes. I ended up not using Kagiri ult, unfortunately, but that's okay, because we can save it right there. Really no noticeable difference there. And you can see that he is creeping up to Sun Wukong, honestly, which is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. My one concern, though, is going to come into play right here, which is the fact that we don't really have a lot of damage for the shield because his ult was not able to come up in time. So we might actually fail here. No, we don't. Thank goodness. And now Moriden's going to get a little bit of an advantage over Sun Wukong because he does get to hit the vulnerability and Wukong just barely doesn't. So keep that in mind. But the fact that it's still very, very close is pretty impressive. I mean, he's A0, Sun Wukong is A5, and Sun Wukong simply has better gear on. Numera is going to die, so we're not going to break that magic shield, which is okay, because I think this is a good enough representation of this, right? I can kind of leave it off here, and I can kind of just click away. Obviously, we would have moved him out of the way, let him charge again, but this team isn't built specifically to get to 60k. 30k is a good baseline. So Kagiri should be closer to 80 mil. Like I said, I missed a couple timings. Doesn't really matter. And here it's going to show that Moriden does more than Wukong, which isn't really true because this does not show shield damage. So if we show shield damage, Wukong's going to be closer to 55. Moriden's closer to 54. But even then, that's really freaking good. This is an A5 limited versus an A0 limited. Is that not kind of crazy? To me, that's kind of crazy. And it can get better. All right. What we can do is we can take this Moriden. Actually, I'm going to put a different Moriden in because I would like to have the A0 for future testing purposes. Here, I have the A1. We're going to go grab this. We're going to put on the exclusive artifact, as usual. We're going to finish A3ing him. For you guys who don't know, who didn't see me explain the kit in a past video, I figured I would skip through it for this one. A1, during the ultimate, increases the chance to trigger Soul Strike with basic attack by 20%. Soul Strike increases the rage given. So if he's using this a lot, it's kind of crazy. He'll start to get his ult super fast to the point where he'll almost have his ult again, which is insane. So stuff like Arena, he's just getting his ult almost all the time. And he ignores defense, which is amazing. Then the A3 is going to make it so that Dark Infusion max stacks gives him an extra 10% boost. So this is 10% more attack, 10% more HP, more defense, all of that stuff. And he also restores rage at about 8% per second, which is really good for Abyss. It'll make Kagiri, it'll make Wukong, it'll make whatever platform DPS is, or platform unit is near him, it'll make them recharge more rage. So if you can get the A3, you're going to want the A3 just because of that. If you like are barely lacking any rage regen, it could be very useful, especially because a lot of the time in Abyss, Wukong and Kagiri will barely not be able to get a third ult off. And if they get the third ult off, they do a lot more damage. But Moriden can help you with that, which is really good. So I like that he has more viability when it comes to that. Now, I did mention that I wanted to build him a little better because he's A3. Let's go for some cracked out gear. Let's not go for some middle of the road gear. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to put 2 crit damages because he does ignore defense, which is good. Here, let me put like this. Let's do some rage just to make some of the rotations a little bit easier. Or we could do a flat attack. Let's do a flat attack. Let me just level this piece very quickly. I'm keeping you guys with me here if you guys want to learn anything about gearing. Basically, you want to go for the 4th stat attack or rage regen. I would like him to get his rage up relatively fast. And then we can go to the builds. 4 stat, insane 4 stat, don't get me wrong. And then we can grab, because we can see that we have a lot of crit rate, we can always go with something like this with Moriden. This would work beautifully, or alternatively, we could just crit cap ourselves and go with that. And now you can see that while Moriden's attack is lower, he's not going to get Diao-Chan's penetration buff, so that's a little bit of missed damage there. We're probably going to make up a lot of it with this monstrous 420% crit damage. Now, he's getting also single target damage here. I will say his vulnerabilities do need to be more consistent for him to be a bit better, but he does put vulnerabilities out, which is really good for a DPS, because if you look at this, since we're not running Ares, we're running Torador, we don't have physical or magic vulnerabilities. That's a little bit of an extra bonus there, but it's so inconsistent that it's very negligible, honestly. With that out of the way, let me just also gear Wukong a little bit better as well, just for a fair comparison. We're going to put our 4 stat on right here. Hopefully it rolls well. I don't think it matters too much, but decent roll. And then we can put our quad on this one too. Once again, let's do it. Let's do attack main. Actually, I think that would be favorable. And then over here we can put on our. Okay, kind of an insane piece. We're gonna put that on. Wukong also is getting penetration. So going into this, keep in mind that Moriden is getting less help than Wukong. But that's generally what your Abyss runs are going to be. You're focusing Wukong, you're focusing Kagiri. But I think this is an accurate third man comparison. And we'll see how well he does compared to Wukong at A3. Here we're going to put Diao-Chan, we're going to put our Aelin, we're going to put our Nerissa. We're going to put Numera, as well as Vorn, as well as Nastia. Then we put Torador down, and we can immediately... let's wait a tiny bit, actually. We don't need to do it immediately, because we have a little bit of downtime later. So, let me just quickly... let me ult now. I know it's the Storm Surge is coming, but we need to get his ult off ASAP. Otherwise, it's going to cause some issues. Here, I'm not going to click Aelin ult this time. I don't think it matters too much. Moriden is hopefully going to last into the vulnerabilities. You can see that his damage is now very, very good. And he's actually going to deal with most of the shield on his own, which allows us a little bit of time to click everyone else's ult. Sun Wukong got more vulnerability that time than ever before. And yet, we did similar amounts of damage with Moriden. And keep in mind, Moriden is able to ult again. Now, I'm not going to use the ult yet, because we do need to move him for the meteoric phase. But you can see there, that's because of his A1. His A1 allows him to proc his soul strikes more, which gives him more rage, which gives him an opportunity to ult 2 times in a row. But we're going to move him out of the way because we need him to charge up for the later phases. And we're going to just keep the train rolling. Now we're into the magic phase, obviously, and we'll see what happens. Now, we are still going to just kind of steamroll this. I'm going to use one less Numera ult. Numera is not the focus, so it's fine. Here, we're going to beat the shield effortlessly. Obviously not really a big deal. And Moriden, because we faced him down, is going to charge up that 60% attribute increase, which is an insane amount of attribute increase. Like, it's kind of insane how much of a buff that is. So we're going to wait for him. We're going to get the boss to swap. Please, thank you. We're going to face him up, back into Diao-Chan range, and then we're going to Wukong, and we're going to Kagiri, just to keep the damage numbers similar. But you can see here, Moriden is keeping up with Sun Wukong, and he's still in his ultimate. And when his ultimate ends, he's probably going to ult again. Now, I could have probably, now that I know how, how much rage he gets when he has that 40 seconds, since he can ult again, I probably could have ulted a second time in the first phase, maybe a little bit of extra damage there. But still, Moriden is doing more damage than Sun Wukong, which is kind of crazy. That's impressive as hell. Sun Wukong is the second best DPS in this content, undeniably. and Moriden is outperforming. Here, we're going to have to, unfortunately, use Kagiri's ult on the shield, as well as most likely Sun Wukong's. Here, Sun Wukong gets a lot of vulnerability damage there, so he's going to shoot up. But Moriden still says, sit your ass down, and you are not anything. Because damn, Moriden is out DPSing. At A3. Only at A3. And I suspect that A2 is going to be fairly similar. Here we're going to do the same thing. We're moving him out. We're probably going to have our Numera die because she's not built super well. Nope, she lives, which is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love that. And then we're going to get the Meteoric Deluge. We're going to be able to keep Kagiri alive. Keep in mind, you don't need to run Kagiri anymore because Moriden can replace him there as well. Here we're going to click Numera. It is possible we don't beat the shield, but she's A3, so I think we should be okay. Okay, we're good. Beautiful. And as you can see here on the side, Moriden is still better than Wukong. Not by much, don't get me wrong, but the facts are there. Here we're going to click Sun Wukong again. We're going to keep it going. And we get the ultimate of Kagiri out. We are able to click Aelin. We're going to keep it going. And essentially, we'll lose on the shield because Born just died and we're a little bit cooked. I'm just going to use the ults early because this is what I would do in a normal run, to be honest. And we're going to see a loss happen very, very soon. I think I missed Kagiri ult there. It's okay. It's possible to break that shield, I think. But at the end of the day, it's kind of very rough. But you can see, Moriden out DPS'd Wukong, and I upgraded Wukong's gear. Wukong got more vulnerability time than usual, because I timed him to break the end of the shield instead of helping to break the shield. Moriden did a lot of the shield damage. But still, Moriden does more damage. Now, keep in mind, Kagiri is on the lower end right now. Kagiri should be closer to 120 if you have him timed perfectly. Perfectly. It's very hard to time Kagiri perfectly. Kagiri should be higher. This is also a little bit of shield damage, so keep in mind that Kagiri is quite a bit ahead of Moriden at A5. But even at A3 versus 2 A5 limiteds, Moriden is holding his own. And this is all because I started to move him and face him down. So a massive shout out to everyone who suggested that. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I feel really dumb that I didn't. But Moriden cooks. Moriden cooks. Now, of course, I will show the A1s on the screen. The A1 stats are on the screen as follows, using the exact same timings and stuff. Just for those that can only get the A1, does he compare to Wukong and Kagiri? Well, that is your answer there if you are curious. But even then, with solid gear and awakenings, the same way I have the other limiteds built, he is holding his own and may even be a little bit better. With that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And that's it for me. Destined signing out.